morning, and thank you for joining us for your Saturday morning waker-upper. I am Alero Edu saying welcome to Sunrise.
Good morning, I'm Ayo Makine. Good morning and welcome to the show. I hope you had a good and productive week. Not as quiet as some people, but ultimately I hope it was a productive one. Oh, by the way, I hear rumors, people are carrying unfounded rumors of some intergalactic war.
Benny. Benny.
All of a sudden you switch to Yoruba channel.
You know that bluish grayish turtle?
Oh.
That was
the leatherback turtle.
Massive turtle that was found somewhere in the southwest. I got a message saying that that turtle is an alien, and that the ship that it was in was stranded in mid-ocean somewhere, and somehow he got ashore and got stranded. And Nigerians are carting it away to go and cut up and eat because there's so much poverty in Nigeria. So when the other aliens find out that one of their kind has been eaten by Nigerians, it might just prompt an intergalactic war.
You know, it just remind me of that thing some people say, intercontinental ballistic missile.
To what an Igbo man would respond, Beke.
Well, I wish we could show that video, but maybe not. It's called a leatherback turtle. It's one of the few of its kind that is still existing in different parts, in different oceans all over the world. And in fact, there's a report in the in a particular website, the UCN, that's the critically endangered, on the red list of IUCN red list of threatened species.
Oh, poor thing.
Yeah, it's the world's largest turtle and is found throughout every ocean that has been recorded as far as Alaska and as close to us as South Africa.
Strange.
Yeah. In
hot waters and in cold waters.
Yeah, so the threats to...
No wonder they're so rare.
Yeah, of course. And you know, interestingly, I was telling you about what they call sea angel.
Yes.
I saw a thread on Twitter, X, earlier in the week, of animals, sea animals that you have never seen before, and you can't even imagine they exist. Some of them look like human beings.
Indeed.
Some of them look like gorillas, and they are right there under the sea. According to I think it's 11,000 meters or something below sea level.
The darkest part of the ocean.
The darkest part of the ocean.
And there is life, even though we learned growing up that all life depends on the sun. The sun doesn't get there, but there's life there.
Well, maybe they take their own heat from the core of the earth.
Okay, all right.
But,
okay.
So, fear not. It
is a leatherback turtle.
The people who saw
whether it's safe to eat it, we don't know. I don't know about that.
I assure you, my people will not wait to find out. No.
So if they eat it, and 10 years down the line, they see all kinds of funny diseases and all that.
English. Do you know what they call calamari?
Beke.
You know what they call calamari?
Yeah, the squid, yes.
Who would ever have thought? Very
tasty.
Who would ever have thought? So, I beg.
Yes. Dirty December is something that I want us to talk about. We have seen all kinds of stats arising from Dirty December. And the latest one that I saw was that at least 500,000 diasporans arrived in Nigeria and spent Christmas in Nigeria. Well, no, I must correct myself. Passed through Lagos Airport, not Nigeria.
Okay.
Passed through Lagos Airport, and then we were told the kinds of figures that we heard that they spent while they were in this country, which means that there is a whole economy surrounding Christmas and the Christmas holiday in Nigeria. So what are we doing to tap fully into it and milk it to its fullest?
Well, I assure you, the person that made this thing to become big the way it is now is Honorable Dr. Babatunde. Sorry, that's not his title. Babatunde Fashola. He is the one that delivered that lecture.
Yes.
And was just, he did, as the Yorubas would say, like we. It was just going on and about the thing that, you know, the fact that there is a huge economy around it. I'm looking for the figures now. I got the figure earlier in the week of something between 60 and 90 billion naira spent in Nigeria.
Well, let's just assume that each of those 500,000 people who arrived in Lagos came in with $1,000. That is 1.7 million naira.
Well,
which to a Nigerian living in Nigeria is a potload of money.
Well, that's in fact the data I saw, Alero, was so interesting. The person was giving bullet by bullet. Okay, X number was spent on drinks.
Hotel.
X number was spent in hotels. X number was spent in some clubs that I can't mention on TV this morning.
Yes.
And on and on and on like that.
Yes.
And he also said, Fashola, in that speech, in a short time he spoke, he said, this is an opportunity. Who is milking it? Before I knew what was happening, you can now look for dirtydecember.com or something like that, and you will find them. It didn't exist before. I don't know if it existed before that speech.
And by the way, the dirty is D-E-T-T-Y,
no,
not D-I-R-T-Y.
In fact, funny, CNN has a story on Dirty December. Ascribes it to Nigeria. Ascribed to Nigeria. And what's interesting is, now that we know that we have this, and as Mr. Fashola said, what are we doing to take the advantage of it the way we ought to? See, this is how CNN puts it. It's a world of endless parties and sleeplessness. It says Lagos, CNN. So it is...
No, it is not a Nigerian, it is a Lagos thing.
Lagos.
It's a Lagos thing.
So it talks about... So now we know we have something. And Mr. Fashola is asking, are we building an industry around it? Because it's a whole load of industry.
And we have time, so we can start now.
And some people are now saying, okay, we should start taxing them.
There's no need for that. Because they're bringing their money to come and spend in your economy. Why do you want to tax them?
No.
When you go to the Brazilian festival, you know, do you pay tax?
The tax is automatic. You know, because anything you buy in those clubs and those other places, don't hotels pay taxes?
Good. So those taxes should be on hotel bills, on what they pay for drinks and what they pay for food in all those joints that they go to, not a tax.
No, I don't think it's like that.
Otherwise, somebody suggested taxing them $500 each.
Why?
Oh.
Okay. When Alero arrives, will they tax Alero too?
Oh.
That she went on whatever.
She lives here.
Who will know?
She lives here.
You are the same color.
Oh yes. Just before we go to the menu, I don't know if you saw, I think it was 2 days ago, that the governors are now solidly behind the president on the tax reform bills.
Okay. I think it's a function of what the president said in that interview. So look, there is no need to pull the bill. All we need is to sit around the table and discuss. And according to the governor of Nasarawa State, Governor Sile was saying, look, we had a discussion with the president, and the president said, we don't need to pull the bill to make those adjustments or those corrections. Just go, make the adjustments, let's pass the laws. And well, it's a tax thing, so we're going to ask some of our guests this morning what that's all 50%, 30%, 20%, what does all of that mean? Because they don't butcher the thing before the thing. Anyway,
well, at least what they say, their song now is a far cry from their song earlier, which was vehement opposition.
Well,
so
the president,
this is encouraging.
The president is a former governor, so he understands the speak.
So we're going to start Sunrise today by looking at renewed terror attacks.
Very unfortunate. And then NCC approves USSD disconnection.
Ouch. Ouch. And then we shall turn our focus on the revised tax bill.
Yes, and then you can have all your questions asked. Just join us on X, put your questions there, we'll ask our guests. Lifestyle today, 2025 personal finance goals. What are yours?
We're still talking about this.
Oh, no, it's still January. Before some people will say, I didn't meet my goals. Oh, there's something that I didn't say. That you notice that in the course of the December and all of that, not many people said we didn't have money. Things were expensive. But
somehow we bought them. We bought them.
So it's a good time to start planning for the next December.
And then we shall close with the Artist of the Week segment. And all I will reveal now is that he is a he. Oh. He is a he from the abroad.
Anyway, please do me a favor. What?
Have you had your cocoa?
Oh, I had my cup of cocoa this morning with dash of honey. Thank you very much. If you've never tried honey, cocoa with honey, a trial will convince you. Thank you very much. And if you prefer cocoa with a dash of honey as well, it's healthier. So grab yours now. I'll be right back. Well, the concerns are kind of coming back, and people are asking questions as to whether or not this is all real or all political or some agenda being played out. Because the Global Terrorism Index recently described the Sahel region of West Africa as the new epicenter of terrorism. This region now accounts for almost half of all deaths from terrorism globally. That's very, very troubling. We have a score of 7,575, and you are ranked 8th on the Global Terrorism Index released last year. And it's number 9 out of 20 most fatal terrorist attacks in 2023. Of course, the Defense Headquarters said the recent spike in terrorist activities across northeast and northwest regions of the country is due to an influx of foreign fighters serving as reinforcements for terrorists. They also attributed the resurgence of fighters from the Sahelian region working in collaboration with local accomplices. That in itself is very disturbing. So let's have conversations around these renewed terror attacks with Dr. Oyewole Ogini, who is Senior Researcher at Bonn International Center for Conflict Studies. He joins us all the way from Bonn. Thanks for joining us this morning, as well as Major General Cecil Isekhaibe, who is retired, and he is also a security analyst. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Let me begin with you, General. This must have some mixed feelings of sorts for you, of being in the military, seeing these terror attacks coming from the Sahel, foreign attacks, so to speak, maybe not organized, whatever it is. What are the impressions that it's giving you? General, can you hear me? All right. We'll take him later, maybe. I don't know if Dr. Ogine, if you can hear me.
I can hear you.
Okay, General, you can hear me now?
I can hear you.
Oh, okay. So I hope you heard my question.
No, I just got in.
Oh, okay. I was asking that what impression do you get when you hear of these renewed terror attacks, in Nigeria, and the fact that we're on an uncomfortable number, 9 out of 20 most fatal terrorist attacks as at 2023.
Thank you, Ayo. Still remembering the sacrifice of those gallant men and women who lost their lives trying to bring this country together. Yes, to your question, what is happening is actually the global influence of global jihadists that has just infiltrated our country. You will understand that the Sahel region has actually, been bedeviled by one conflict or the other. So what has happened in Nigeria now, in the Northeast and the Northwest, is the infiltration of these jihadists into our country. So the heightened attacks are the result of their sophistication in arms and all the things they carry, and the porosity of our border at which they have, they gain easy entrance into our borders, and they just come in to do what they're doing. So the heightened attacks as a matter of the influence of these jihadists that have infiltrated our country.
Straight question on that, General. A quick follow-up. I apologize. Didn't we see this coming? Usually we hear of intelligence. So if this is coming now and it seems like it is catching us unawares, it suggests that maybe we didn't even know it was going to come, even though we have the intelligentsia.
Well, in global conflicts like this, especially in terrorism, it's an ongoing and a protracted crisis, and that all the things that need to be done are continuously be done. What we have to do is, to up our stake in intelligence gathering and sharing. Not that we don't anticipate some of these things, but there are things that make them very easy, to continue to flow in. Like I just said, border management and, the need to re-examine our relationship with our neighbors. So when you look at all these things critically, you'll find out that not that we don't expect this, but the level at which they come are determined by some factors, like our relationship with our neighbors, and like I said, the need to actually track, the global financing of terrorism and all that.
General,
yes,
why you say that there are global jihadists infiltrating Nigeria? Why are they coming into our country? Is it because our borders are so porous and it's easy to enter? What is the agenda for coming into Nigeria?
Now, like I said, the borders are very porous. And number two, the kind of crisis that has bedeviled our neighboring states, like Mali, Chad, and Niger. Their disconnection with their colonial masters, and even the ECOWAS factor, during their, military incursions. So that is why we need to properly manage our relationship with our neighbors and now redefine what they call national interest. The big brother syndrome should be checked. And I think the time for, this big brother thing and, carrying other people's matters on our head, neglecting our own national security, need to be re-examined. So they come in easily because of primordial sentiments of affiliations and the porous borders.
Let me come to you. Again, I'll stay on the issue of whether or not we have, on the issue of the porosity. But let me ask you that question differently. I was discussing before the program this morning with my colleague here, Lera, saying, why do we have such level of terror attacks in areas that have the highest rates of poverty in the country? What's the intention? If it was economic, one would have expected that you go to areas where people can actually, get money for whatever. What do you think is responsible for that? What's the agenda, as Alero asked?
Yeah, the question is when people are hungry, there is no employment, poor governance, and the lack of government spaces all over the place. It becomes fertile for recruitment of these elements into the...
No, the question is for Dr. Ogini. I apologize, sir. The question is for Dr. Ogini.
Yeah, thank you very much. I hope you could hear me very well. Good morning.
We can hear you. Go ahead.
Yeah, and it's nice to speak again on the issue that has been held for a long time. Yeah, I think I will just give you a very clear example. I was in the at least 7 or 8 border zone of Nigeria late last month, especially in the northwest Nigeria. So, but I will speak to the Lake Chad Basin, for example, what happened between our neighbors, which is Chad, Niger, and Cameroon, and what is evolving. If you look at it in the last 18 months, there have been changes in the armed group dynamics in this area. ISWAP at some time has actually been renowned as being powerful, taking control of the lake area, while JAS, which is formerly led by the Shekau group, taking care of the Mandara Mountain, which is the border between the Nigeria and Cameroon. That stretch is a very long border, and you can even see intersection around that Fokoto region, and then when you go to places like Kuseri, which connects Nigeria, Chad together. So these armed groups are known, their leaders are known. But what is happening in the dynamics is when Boko Haram seems to be defeated, they also actually lower their risk profile. They operate just like a normal bandit, don't release this message, and this gives an impression that they are all gone and everything is fine. So over time, they recruit themselves since the coup happened, and there was a serious issue with the relationship between Nigeria and Niger. If you remember, the multinational joint task force that was participating, for example, Operation Lake Sanity 2, or even if you look at Operation Lake Sanity 1, which is joint operation between Nigeria and these 4 countries, you realize that it was only Cameroon, Nigeria, and Chad that participated in the Lake Sanity 2 due to the coup issue and the relationship between Niger and Nigeria. And during this period, there was a drastic change in the armed group dynamics, such that JAS actually regained control in some area, and that's why you can see the record in November, for example, the attack against the Chadian military on the LAC area, and which claimed the life of some soldiers there. And then the president had to say, the state are negligent, the cooperative state are negligent, we are considering withdrawing. This is just one part of the problem. So the other dimension, which we generally mentioned on the porosity, maybe I slightly disagree that it's just actually porosity. The porosity is not necessarily the problem, because there is no border area that does not have local government. There is no border area that does not have traditional ruler. Most of these traditional rulers are connected to the local government. They are connected somehow to the politician. What is happening there is the presence of state services. Not the presence, not the porosity per se. So if you go to places like Ilela, in the other side, in the northwest, you can see the border zone. If you move down to Gudu area in Sokoto, or you move to Katsina on the other side, you will see that all these areas are very green area where bandits are operating. Green area which can be made for grazing route. Well, if you want to say the presence of military or security, that's another discussion. But the presence of safe services, social services, that is one part. The second part, when we talk about poverty as a reason why many people are getting into that, yes, of course, poverty is a factor. But the grievances against the state from the local level actually is exploited more to actually gain traction. But what we need to pay attention to in this dimension, especially the relationship, I know we go deeper to that and speak to that, is that the local community don't see the state existing because of the social services, not because of the military presence, not because of the absence of state police. No. The second point on the intelligence gathering, the local community have information and they share this information. But are they protected? This is the question, and we'll discuss further on this.
Well, Dr. Ogini, you've left us with more puzzles than answers. Anyway, Mr. Onyekachi Adekoya has also since joined us for this conversation. He is a security consultant. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Just take to him something that Dr. Ogini raised. He's talking about, before he came on, Prof had spoken about, General had spoken about porosity of the border. We've had this problem of terrorists for more than 10 years.
Yeah.
Shouldn't we have wisened up by now and done something about our borders? Or are we doing anything about it that we just don't hear about because we're not in your space? In your space, yes.
Okay. So good morning to the viewers, and also my salutations will go to the members of the armed forces who we did do their remembrance for all the sacrifices that they make. Your question is very important as to whether we should not have wisened up. The problem is a hydra-headed problem. So, yes, General has spoken from a perspective. Indeed, the borders are porous, but we are in West Africa. You have 15 countries in West Africa. About 8 of them are Francophone countries, and you have the instability in the Sahel. You have the New Alliance. The General did talk about the Big Brother syndrome in Nigeria, and he's coming from an operational perspective, because when it comes to funding military operations, Nigeria, as it were, had been the one, even till tomorrow, still, carrying the major burden.
Case in point.
Yeah, case in point, ECOMOG, we did do ECOMOG to project national power and our own national interest, which some argue also brought us in conflict with some international interests also within Africa. So when you hear the claim of France, the US, and the bases and all that, so there's a problem in the Sahel that stretches, point to point in Africa, across that belt, even to the Central African Republic. That problem is there, and that speaks to the issue with the border. So you can, case in point, Libya, instability in Libya coming down this way. So the border is a factor, but on a scale of 1 to 10, it's probably a 4. If you have proper regional cooperation, the word proper, the Lake Chad Basin governors are going to be meeting in Maiduguri shortly to also look at the issue of integration. So that is there. To the question as to whether we've not learned enough, I do think also that correctly, we're a bit naive in terms of security in Nigeria. You look at Israel and the war against Hamas, despite the fact that Israel is a great power. It's prosecuted this war, not been able to release all the hostages. It's been taking incursions and attacks from Yemen, from Hezbollah. America has also had its own fair share of attacks. So that Nigeria is suffering from one form of attack or the other doesn't mean that our systems are failing. It just means that that is the world we live in today. So to your point, have we learned enough? In terms of our understanding of context, we are not learning enough. And I think that sometimes in the media, there is a bit of a hysteria over these issues. I mean, it's like the medical space. When you take a patient and the next thing they say the patient has packed. And the nurses and the doctors say it casually because that is their operating environment. So we may sound a bit casual with it, but we need to mature. To your point, have we learned enough? Mature up to understand that it is not every 1 or 2 incidents that means that the system has failed. We are prosecuting a war against an insurgency. I've been looking at the data, and something surprising happened last year, 2024. For the first time, around May, the data would suggest that armed violence in the Northwest spiked above armed violence in the Northeast. While violence is trending downwards in the Northeast, it's picking up in the Northwest. which is not news to any one of us. But we had a super camp strategy. We had a forward operating base strategy. Nigeria doesn't have all the resources it really needs to prosecute the war. So we're having to shift and change and tilt towards the northwest, now creating some opportunities in the northeast. So we are learning, but we are shooting at a moving target. Now we'll keep shooting.
Mr. Adekoya,
yeah.
We're talking about human lives, the lives of Nigerians.
Correct.
People whose livelihoods, whose lives generally shift every time some of these issues arise. Now, the job of government, federal, state, or local, is to protect lives and property. So when these things happen, it is natural for any analyst to say government is failing in its responsibility.
Correct.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
Now, that said, we have governors in every state in the north of Nigeria, northwest or northeast. And unfortunately, these things are happening. In the previous government, they would go to the president and say, we're having problems. And the president will always drive them back home. What is it that the governors could be missing, whether as individual governors or as geopolitical blocs, to deal with these issues?
You want to put me on the spot, and the problem...
You're already on the spot.
Yeah, so the problem is, you know, we operate a bit of a kakistocracy in Nigeria, meaning that we're not led by the best of us. A shining light is in Borno, the professor, Babagana Zulum. Because where there's a political will, you will see the effort. So some of this optic you see in the Lake Chad Basin is because, see, the governor has said you can't keep staying in the camps, IDP camps, wherever. So move the people and resettle back them in their communities, because if you leave ungoverned spaces, you know, these people have free reign. Now they are beginning to move back these people into their community as livelihood activities are picking up in those places. You talked about poverty or something. These people collect tax. So the more people coming back into the community, the more money they will make. So that will lead to an uptick. In the northeast is a bit fair because there's some structure. You have the Buduma faction, you have the Albakura faction, Jazz, ISWAP. You know the factions you are dealing with. In the northwest, just about any group takes up arms, and it's a ragtag crazy fest in the northwest. The northeast still has some similitude of shape and form to it. Some of the optics you see in this report is not from GSF operation. It's just clear ISWAP being annoyed, according to reports, that the locals may perhaps cooperating or paying, in some cases, tax to Jazz and not to them. And providing Jazz with information and not to ISWAP, not even to the government security forces. The last incident in Kukawa, we understand, that was the case. So you see, the issues are not even Nigerian government sometimes. They are local issues. They are, you know, this Bakura, Buduma, those are like small clans.
And they are things that maybe state governments could have
now, to the point
intervened.
on state governments, that's why I said I mean, I don't want to be on the floor of National Assembly tomorrow and having to say, oh, you said this one time. But we don't have very smart governors with very profound respect in the north. With very profound respect. The best of us are not the governors in the north. I will make an exception for only a few, and I will not mention names, because it doesn't make any sense. Anyway. The landmass in the north is very big. The governor's culture is poor, non-existent. Social services are not rendered. People collect money and share it. I look at the case of the tax reform and the hula baloo, the hoopla that has been raised over because people don't want to tax their brains. So if they cannot tax their brains in the area of IGR and developing their local economy, you expect them to have the presence of mind, that's what I'll call it,
okay,
to deal with their domain.
All right. General, do you agree with him?
Yes, to some extent. If you look at the governing pattern in some of those states, and incidentally, in Northwest, for instance, The 5 of them are one of the 10 poorest states in the country. It's nothing but weak, exclusionary, and exploitative governance that you see. And what are the effects of this? Hunger, unemployment. And at the end of the day, you have a vulnerable group of people who are, readily recruited into this insurgency saga. So leadership recruitment, yeah, and there should be some factors to consider when you are recruiting these people. As a matter of fact, like he said, I have been in Borno State for some security, surveillance jobs, and I know the effort that Professor has put into, addressing what we call the non-kinetic aspect of operations. And it's a question of battle of heart and mind. If you address this properly, you'll find out that some of these things become easy to tackle. There is just a clear evidence of poor governance, and that it leads to so many of governance spaces, that are very, very, readily available for the insurgents. So I agree with him to a very large extent. And apart from also the poor governance side, is also, some other factors like, the climate change, for instance, and the fragility nexus. You find out the desertification of the Sahara, that leads to the Sahel region and all that have precipitated.
My apologies for butting in. At the end of the day, anyone listening or watching right now would say, hey, so maybe I should put it differently. Are you saying that this has nothing to do with the military? Is there nothing the military can do about it? Because as we said in our tag on this discussion, we're saying it's renewed terror attacks. And it's putting Nigeria in very bad light. So is it a job for the military, or the military is just a last resort? What do you think the governors or the governments of the various states and local areas have said if these issues, these so-called terror attacks, are more local than they look?
The military, as a matter of fact, has discharged their responsibility perfectly well to some extent, because in the operational level, they've done very well. Especially recently, their approach to insurgency, has been profound. For example, selecting, the headship of these armed groups, and they have yielded a lot of results. But the battle has shifted from operational level to strategic level, which is the government. So it is the government that will provide, because there is a charter in the Constitution that said security and welfare of the people are the primary purpose of governance. So the government need to take the strategic level thing. For instance, you have to look at what they call global terrorism finance and not to tackle it. And I know in the past, we kept saying we are going to name and shame those who are involved in terrorism. I cannot recollect if there has been anything like that. 2, it's a deliberate attempt to trace, track, and arrest and prosecute those who are involved in this terrorism financing. Also, 2, you also have to find out the government, the battle of heart and mind. And a hungry man is an angry man. And because of this issue surrounding, the complexities of hunger, unemployment, and all that, that is the more reason we said emphasis is about combination of kinetic and non-kinetic approaches to insurgency. The military are doing the kinetic approaches and to a very large extent yielding results. But these things cannot go alone without the non-kinetic approach or the battle of heart and mind. Good governance allow people to feel, a good sense of belonging to a civilized society.
Okay.
So it's not a one-sided complaint. It's not a one-sided, issue of who has not doing well or who has not done well or who has done well. The military, to my estimation, have done well, though they still need to up their intelligence gathering and sharing. They still need to up, their interagency cooperations. But when you talk of the operational aspect of this warfare, I think they have discharged their responsibility. It's now left for the government to take the strategic level of tracking the financing, 2, examining our relationship with our neighbors. For instance, like Dr. Ogini said, when we have problem with Niger Republic, what happened? Nigeria should not be, a testing ground for, any inconvenience. When people are not happy with their colonial masters, then Nigeria bears the burden of the consequence of that. So we should re-examine our relationship with our neighbors. What we put in, are we getting a corresponding deal from what we put into their existence? Okay.
Dr. Ogini, let me take you back to what Mr. Adekoya spoke about earlier. The governors. What do you think that they can do, either individually or collectively as a bloc, to fight this thing that we're seeing?
Yeah, thank you very much for that. I think you can see that General also already mentioned some elements on how the military really touched down on the crisis of different dimensions. If you look at Northeast, it's different from the Northwest in the architecture. But then I will first speak to the internal generation. You know, we have a report coming up next month, which we conducted. First, on the issue of kidnapping, we found out that there are a lot of big men who are involved in kidnapping business. They are not directly the one involved in that, but they have people who, when they escape justice, they find their way, they find solace through collaboration, and their involvement actually even make the amount collected as ransom, for example, costing about $5,000 more, because they have to also serve it. This is coming next month. I can also share with you when that is out. What is more important I want to state here is when you look at Northwest, for example, look at Ilela, the Ilela zone in Sokoto, and then go to KB, so places called Dolekena, which is the border between Nigeria and Niger Republic. When you go to Dolekena, you will see for yourself the activities going on there. When you cross the ship, I crossed it last month anyway, went to the other side, you will see economic activities going on there. And Dolekena do not experience any insurgency attack. But when you move to the other side, Ilela, you will see it dry. You see the point? So those places, people don't find work to do. And then they are easily able to, you know, get attracted to be recruited by this armed group. Now, if you move from Dolekena, let me go to the northwest and northeast. If you go to Tulo in Yusuferi local government in Yobe, Tulo, before you reach Tulo, you also pass other place. But before you pass that other place, they are more prone to security challenge than Tulo, which is far close to the border of Niger. You have to travel maybe like 2 hours or so on the desert, a very fantastic area that could be a point for tourism anyway. But what is interesting is when you go to that community, I asked the community leader, how do you manage it that none of your youth join the armed group, but your neighbors, they actually experience this? He said, you know what? We tell them to get work doing. I have to restock the river with fish. People were able to fish. Some of them, of course, they work in the mining industry in Libya. That's another discussion. But what I want to say is they have something to do. And that's really helped. So there are a lot of adamas that have been created. Some are no longer working in the north. Some could be exploited. And the idea that this area, a poverty area, is actually not true. Because if you look at Northwest, go to places like Gida and another area in the local government in Sokoto, each of those communities, each household produced 1,000 bags of onion before they experienced the banditry. And you know what? How much a onion costs now, a bag? Over 200,000. But today, they could not produce 100 bags of onion. So this is one point. And if you move eastward from Tangaza area, you will see that there are households who specialize in farming, very rich. They are being targeted for kidnapping. So those who could not farm 1,000 anymore, what does that really mean? There will be changes in the wealth distribution, and that's also caused a lot of problems. So there are basic things that we could do. There are existing, for example, if you move towards this direction of Sokoto, you are going to Tangaza area, you will see local indigenous way of storage. They are all there. Just a little thing is to improve it and say, look, we can help you to store your product so that you can have this all over. So there are little things we could do first to stabilize the local economy. So the idea that those areas are poor area, I really disagree. They are not really poor. What happened is If you go to the cattle, you know how much a cow actually costs now. And you know how much we have there. So the idea that that border area is a problem is what I'm thinking that we need to change. It's actually not a problem. Rather, it's an opportunity for us to really exploit. Government will benefit, the local people will benefit. Go to Mubi. I have been to Mubi, I stayed there for some period of time. If you go to the market, you will hardly pass a road because the whole place, the cattle come as far as Ethiopia, Sudan. They move through the other Central Africa, they move through Cameroon, and they get to Nigeria because we have the large market. So there are a lot of opportunities to explore here until we really sit down and say, look, it is time to really improve our local governance. It is time to make economy at the border really a priority. This is one aspect that the general is talking about. The non-kinetic is not just only engaging the military, is to provide alternative livelihood. Now, on the issue of making people to return to their community, spreading the camp, there are also risks there. From our research, we find out first, some of them maintain active collaboration with this armed group in the forest. Some of them, they return, they come back. It's a fact. Some of them are willing to join even the group in the Northeast because some of them are just staying there. They don't have anything to do, even though they surrender. So there are a lot of risks involving in that, including weapon circulation and others. So these are things that also still need to be discussed. Okay. As you know, it's far cheaper to get weapon, AK-47, across those borders than to get it in the hinterland. And the dynamics there is those guys who actually carry the AK-47, AK-49 to operate as a bandit. For example, if you talk about Sokoto, when these bandits operate, they are in a bike, you can see 3 people on a bike. And each of them will carry 3 different weapons. So that is 9 weapons. And 200 bike will operate for an operation. So guess how they get it? Those who operate there, they are just between 14 to 30, very young people. Okay? But those who control the access to the weapon supply, who get the money, they are not living in the forest because there's nothing you can do with the money that you kidnap in the forest. They live in the city, they enjoy the life there. So these are the dimensions that we need to look at internally first before we even start talking about the border in the
Talking about internally, Dr. Ogini, we've heard some governors, former governors, talk about the fact that, one, some of the insecurity, or rather, the renewed terror attacks, if we can put it that way, in the Northwest at the time, I think it was in the previous government, was because the Northwest governors, or maybe even all Northern governors, stopped doing what they were supposed to do. One. Secondly, there are those who say also that the issues we're talking about are a lot more political than social or even security. Do you agree?
I do. Because if you talk about Tuju Bello has uncle, he has relationship with others, they know him, just one of the group there, they negotiate with him at some point and others don't negotiate. So this is the question of the political party there. And also the another dimension to this, for example, is the dimension of how security network is established to counter banditry in those areas. Who form part of this security? Which ethnic group is profiling? I can give you clearly, for example, if you go to places like Lilela, there are places where the nomad have to live and they become refugees in Niger. So they cannot be seen there because of their ethnic identity. So a lot of things go on. As this group continue to move towards the forest area, they are, of course, getting close to the bandit area. They are continue to be profiled as bandits. So this dimension actually complicates the issue. So yes, some government negotiate, some don't negotiate. Everybody does that. I mean, if you look at Masari in Castina, there are quite a lot of things. I don't want to speak too much on this so that you don't question me. But there are a lot of things that really need to be done. Look at Castina right now. I give you an example. There was a person killed last year, the Castina State Association leader of cattle herders. I had an interview with him early last month. It was a shame because all the discussion he was having is the issue of justice. When I read it in the news, I couldn't sleep for 3 days. So this is the dimension of how the security situation has been. So it's a real challenge that has to do whether there's a politics involved. What matters is, are the life of the people protected? Are people safe? This is the question.
It comes back to the local issues that you mentioned, Mr. Adekoya. These issues are local, and it would seem like it's becoming a norm, and it is disturbing. Yes, we hear people also say that even in the US, they have internal security issues, but I'm not talking about the US. Oh, Mexico, they're having their problems. I'm not talking about Mexico, I'm talking about Nigeria. And the lives of the people which hasn't been made better over the years simply because. So where do we go from here?
Okay, good question. Just to also say that and reassure Nigerians that this problem can be fixed. Climate change can be an opportunity also. Again, I have to talk about other countries, the pure desert region, Israel, Saudi, Dubai, leadership, the amplitude of mind to think. Desert region, you can't farm in it. There's cloud seeding. There is different things you can do, to even re-energize the Lake Chad Basin. So leadership, it boils down to leadership, 1. 2, domain awareness. In the military, they talk about area of responsibility. The question is, are the governors fully aware of what's happening in their domain? Do they have situational visibility? What we find is that politicians make promises to do this or do that, not being fully aware of the problems before they get into the office. 2, they are not even prepared for what they are aspiring for. Security is a very complex, highly technical area. With profound respect to those in the military, you have a security challenge, you call a retired military man to advise you. He's trained all his life in warfare, but the society is not a war front. That's why in 2019 we said that human security will be the basis upon which we do national security. So if the governors themselves cannot interpret security reports, are not getting proper advice, are not, able to apprehend the issues of security, they can make informed decisions. So on the issue of security, you cannot do security without social economic prosperity, without socio-political stability, without a proper criminal justice system. Dr. Guinea was talking about big people profiteering from the kidnapping. The MBS did report, the MBS, that within 2023-2024, about 2.2 trillion naira. What are you talking about global financing? Forget about global financing. 2.2 trillion in Nigeria was paid as ransom. And we're talking about the tax bill. There's money. So for me, really, again, I come back to this issue of the political class. Maybe sometimes we think that they don't want to, but the bigger problem is that maybe they don't know how to. We think it's a problem of will. Perhaps it's a problem of ignorance and being naive. So maybe we have to begin to have a school for the political class and governors on certain issues. And it's not a joking matter. The president is the leader of the country. It can't be all politics. Some education is needed.
Absolutely.
Have a strategy session with these governors, show them the potentials, do those brainstorming sessions, show them, educate them. We don't have the best minds being governors.
Okay. General, your last comment.
Well, just to connect with what the Prof said, the governors of those states need to, redefine what governance is all about. And looking at even the arrogance of their controversial peace agreement with criminals. How do you negotiate with criminals when you don't have the principles? The optics, they don't favor you. Apart from that naked arrogance, they also have this question of lack of, grappling with the consequences of hunger, poverty that face them. Now let us hide under our inadequacies to challenge certain policies of government. When they're properly analyzed, you'll find out that at the end of the day, they will really be of good, program for the whole country. So we need, like I said earlier, this upsurge is not it's not an unusual thing, but the way we tackle them is what matters. We must understand that the place we are today, the insurgency has moved from the operational level to the strategic level. The government must play a leading role now. 3, we must tackle the economic aspect of this warfare. Who are those people that are benefiting from this warfare? And don't forget, that is why the former Secretary of State of the US, McConnell, said, war is too sophisticated to be left in the hand of the military. What that simply means that the government takes responsibility for the welfare and security of its people. Thank you.
Thank you so much, gentlemen, for your comments this morning. Major General Cecile Sekhaigbe, retired, who also has a PhD, is a security analyst. Thank you so much for your time. Dr. Oyewole Ogene, senior researcher, Bonn International Center for Conflict Studies. Clearly, you're not just talking from research, you're actually talking from practical experience on the field. Thank you so much for your time, as well as Mr. Onyekachi Adekoya, who has literally provoked us this morning. Again, thank you so much for your time, gentlemen. Now, with that said, we hope that all that needs to be done is that the job is now cut out for all those who have been called out. So, when we return, segue into the next topic. Stay with us.
Anything.
USSD.
USSD.
Not US.
SD.
SSD.
And disconnection. Well.
And the D in that
NCC
USSD doesn't stand for disconnection.
Has wielded the big stick. The CBN stated that payment agreements, whether as lump sums or installmentals, must be finalized by January 2nd, 2025, with full settlement due by July 2nd of this year. Telcos are now backed by NCC to suspend the unstructured supplementary service data USSD services over poor commitment from 9 banks. In fact, the CBN stated the 9 banks involved. This means that in a matter of weeks, some services which you enjoy on your telephone will be suspended. And the NCC has given its backing to that. And when the NCC backs something like that, then you, the subscriber, you have a problem. Professor of Legal, Social and Political Environment of Business and Head of Department of Strategy at the Lagos Business School, Professor Olawale Ajayi, will join us to look at this particular matter. Good morning, Professor.
To you. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be with you today.
Yes, sir. So how is it, sir, that the monies involved in this thing have reached such a high figure before anything was done about it?
Well, this has built up from, I think, 2019. Initially, the banks disputed any responsibility to pay. The idea being that, well, the telcos are the ones charging and they should just bill the customers. I think initially customers were very unhappy about end user billing. And probably, around that time when the USSD came into bloomed, I think the central bank issued a circular, I think in 2017 or so. And then, in order to sell it or to make it more acceptable, I think the issue of end user billing was dropped, and the banks started to charge. Well, the banks started to charge, and the telcos then said, well, we're supposed to get part of that. And then there was that dispute, I think around 2020. I think at the initial start, I think it was about 40 billion or so that the telcos said they were being owed. I do remember distinctly that the former governor of Central Bank, or rather, let me say the Central Bank, initially more or less told the banks to ignore the telcos. But in 2021, when this matter became heated, I think about that time the telcos were saying the debt was around 80 billion or so. The National Assembly got involved and apparently was able to get accommodation. And so a charge of 6 naira 98 kobo was agreed. It's this, and which was not paid. Of course, the banks disputed the amount the telcos said should be charged. Between the telcos and NCC, the telcos had to justify, the cost that they attributed to use of USSD services. The good thing, I think, is that NCC and CBN started singing, apparently on the same page from 2021, but certainly from last year. I think it's a good thing that the two regulators really now, sort of were working somewhat harmoniously to try and ensure that the issues are resolved.
Okay. Professor, let me just take you back a bit. Can you just explain to us how this USSD thing works so that everybody is on the same page?
Well, ordinarily, I think I can put it this way: you want to make a payment that ordinarily you would have to go onto your internet banking, or there are apps that the FSBs, the financial service providers provide for you to do your transactions. So you would need internet.
Sorry. The bank apps.
The banks.
Okay.
Yes, bank apps.
Okay.
Payment provider apps.
Okay.
Or you go right onto internet banking.
Okay.
Would normally be the way that you would pay for services or do transfers and so on and so forth. Now, USSD happens to be a protocol that allows you to pay without needing internet service. It's also somewhat quite nimble in terms of usage. Of course, it is still the telcos that provide the signals from your mobile phone. The instructions that you provide in your mobile phone, just that, and these instructions, of course, are encrypted to make sure that your sensitive details are not released. But the instructive part of it is that you do not need internet, you do not need to have data in order to use USSD services. And this, for those who will call the financially excluded, people who have no banking accounts, people who are in the rural areas, who probably don't even have internet services in those areas, with their feature phones, not the smartphones, can do transactions, can receive money from their relatives and so on. Even can buy inputs, whether farming inputs, etc. So I think that is the major feature of the USSD applications. If I believe both of you have smartphones, but for some reason, if you suddenly are unable to get internet services and you need to, subscribe or renew subscription for your mobile data, you probably have to ask somebody to please send data to your number. But if you have USSD, even if you didn't have internet services, generally you would be able to carry out your transactions. The other point, of course, is that internet services can be problematic in terms of connectivity. Some of these apps, banking apps and so on, can also have bugs and problems, etc. So the USSD is mainly, I would say, for those you will call in the mass market, those in the rural areas, those who do not have the ability to afford smartphones. So it's a major feature of financial inclusion, which the central bank has also touted, and which the banks and other financial players tell us that they are committed to. So this problem would affect those categories of people the more.
Prof, I just tried the USSD of my bank, and I didn't do anything. I just tapped it, 5 digits, star, this, hash, and I entered, and then I got a response, and then I dismissed. And I was charged 6 naira 98 kobo immediately.
For doing nothing, for tapping on the app.
Yeah, I just checked if my bank is USSD is still active. 6 naira 98 kobo, and if we look at that possibility of being charged like that by every Nigerian who uses this from time to time, that's quite a huge resource. What do you think could be responsible for this tiff between the banks and the telcos that's gotten this high? Because I'm sure that it's not a matter that just suddenly came up and then the NCC put its stamp on the telcos disconnecting things. What do you think could have made it worse to this point?
Well, let me just preface my answer with some intrigue. Let me say I'm intrigued that you are charged right away, because what we are made to understand is that if you're not on USSD for more than 10 seconds, you may possibly escape from being billed at all, and that's what is. That is
just to be clear.
Yes.
It says description, telco fee, MTN. And I don't want to mention the bank, but that's 6 naira 98 kobo is what I've been charged.
Yeah, so that's the point I'm making, that ordinarily we're made to believe that if you don't spend more than 10 seconds, you probably may not even be charged at all. But the point of the fact is that, telecommunication services have to be powered. You have to have the masts, you have to have the staff. So these are certainly not free services. In fact, telecommunication services have become vital infrastructure, even though maybe run by private persons. But practically everything we do has to ride on this telco infrastructure. And ordinarily, somebody ought to pay for services that are rendered, whether they are banking services or telco services, because after all, there is a cost to rendering those services. So I think that is the primary rationale for for charging. The important thing would be to make sure, that's from the regulatory point of view, that the price attributed to the services are relative to the actual expenses that are incurred by the telcos and also by the banks. As I did mention, initially there was end user billing, which was somewhat resisted, and it was felt that probably the banks could more easily, could more easily charge and then remit, those charges to the telcos. Somehow the banks have been charging us, from get-go, but the telcos were not receiving anything. And so I guess the telcos now felt that, look, you are making this revenue on the basis of services we provide, which is not being paid for. We deserve to also have a share of that revenue. I guess it was more like free funds for the banks, and they were very happy to have it. And their regulator was not necessarily insisting that they should pay. So I would say that all of this TIF is really about ensuring that the telcos get satisfaction relative to the costs that they are rendering to the banks. And the fact that the NCC is behind them means that they have justified to the NCC, the costs that they attribute. And simply what has happened is that since 2021, when it was accepted that the telcos should be paid, the banks have not remitted. Well, the banks do dispute, those figures, but I think with the settlements that have been made, those figures are probably now quite certain. The issue is whether the banks would pay, on time. You probably can't pay lump sum, but you can pay over time. But apparently, as we have seen, some banks have paid. I think we understand that like 4 banks have paid up their indebtedness, and some banks are still either have not paid or still owing substantial sums. So the agreement backed by the CBN and the NCC is, in fact, to write off, 60% of certain portion. Is to write off 40% of certain portion of that indebtedness. More or less like a full and final settlement, and all the other portions to pay them within time limits. And therefore, in transactions that will be incurred going forward, to pay 85% of the bills in the month in which those bills are submitted.
Prof, that suggests, therefore, that these payments were supposed to have been made over time, month by month.
Correct.
So how did the telcos wait 6 years? Because we understand that this dispute has been going on for 6 years for monies that were supposed to have been paid every month.
Yes. Well, as I did mention, at a point, the banks, were of the impression that they did not owe. That after all, the telcos charge their clients for services. And so the telcos should charge their clients. And of course, when, that, as I did mention, the notion of end billing was not very welcome. So that was one hurdle. And of course, the banks have been, charging off USSD services. And so the telcos now said, well, we ought to get a portion of that. The banks pushed back and said, well, charge your customers directly. And when this regulatory intervention came in, it was agreed that 6.98 naira was a fair price for the transaction, which would be charged by, for the services and transferred to the telcos. So I think that is really where the problem is. The problem is really more about the so-called legacy debts, which apparently have now been agreed, but because they were not being paid, they were just piling up to the at 1.250 billion. We understand now it reduced to about 140 billion. I would just say on my part that whatever charges are made, it's always the customer that pays.
Yes.
and you really also cannot say banks should not charge for services, telcos should not charge for service. The more important point is that those charges should be fair, and there should be transparency so that consumers are not being cheated, or are not the proverbial was in a ball that is being kicked around by big bullies. So I think that the other point, of course, is that if you want to encourage financial inclusion, as I did mention, the USSD is certainly integral to ensuring that, let's call them the bottom of the pyramid. People who probably don't even have a job or don't have a steady income can be included financially, and from that point, maybe their economies can blossom. We do need to ensure that this financial inclusion is pushed, and it may well be, from a public interest point of view, that the regulators need to find a way to subsidize some people. Some people may have to subsidize those who are less able to pay. This will be, regulatory, decisions that may have to be made in the public interest to ensure that, there's some redistribution of income, and there are developmental impacts and effects which will be for the overall benefit of the nation. But I guess that would be a later thing to discuss.
Okay.
Yes, please.
Prof, we've almost run out of time completely, but just as a matter of interest, how much of this $6.98 charged per transaction should go to the telcos?
Well, that is supposed to go to the telcos.
Oh, all of it?
That is the charge that's supposed to go to the telcos, yes.
All of it?
Yes.
Oh, okay. All right. Professor Olawale Ajayi, Professor of Legal, Social and Political Environment of Business, and Head, Department of Strategy at the Lagos Business School. Thank you very much for coming to enlighten us on this very important matter.
Thank you for having me.
Well, just before we take a break, we have this information to put out to you of a man who has gone missing. On the 6th of January this year, a man of whose name, of course, Moses Nwoye, who is right there on your screen, was visiting his child in Onekpanu, Lagos, and he went missing after leaving home around 5 p.m. same day. Efforts to contact him revealed he was disoriented and unable to describe his location. We understand his last known location, tracked on the 15th of January, was near 108 Western Avenue in Surulere, Lagos, around the National Stadium Bridge. The family has filed a missing persons report and appeals for your help. If you've seen him or have any information, please contact that number on your screen. Thank you so much. When we return, we'll take on the next conversation. Do stay with us. Fully, my eyes are not taxed. Yes, I knew you didn't see that coming. You can see that she looked at me. Anyway, much furore, much ado about this reformed or revised tax reforms. I thought we were reforming the tax bills. Now we have to revise the reformed tax reform bills. Anyway, that's the conversation we're having now. State governors, at the end of their meeting 2 days ago, endorsed the sharing of the VAT proceeds on the basis of 50% equally, or 50% equality, unchanged from what is currently in operation, 30% derivation, and from the 20% currently in operation, and 60% that was proposed by the Presidential Tax Reform Committee, headed by Mr. Taiwo Oyedele, I beg your pardon. Well, let's get into the nitty-gritty.
Mr. Olusegun Okwade joins us in the studio this morning to have conversations around this. He's a chartered accountant and public affairs analyst. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Good morning and good morning to our viewers.
Dr. Olugbenga Adeoye is also with us in the conversation. He joins us virtually. He's a chartered accountant and a tax professional and an international business law expert. Thank you for joining us this morning, Dr. Adeoye.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here again.
Well,
Dr. Adeoye, I think you're doing more accounting now than legal.
Well, so interwoven.
Okay,
both
well,
law and accounting.
Good. Well, that part of you that you don't normally put out is the one we're going to take on this morning, the tax professional part. Then let me report Alero to you. As soon as we got around this morning, the first thing she was asking me is, what's this 50% equality, 30% derivation, 20%? I said, wait, that question is for Dr. Adeoye, not for me. So please, answer her.
Well, I'm really troubled and worried when I read the communique from the Governors Forum, simply because I say that they are making suggestions, but this suggestion is still left with the National Assembly to look into. So, how does this calculation work? Before now, what we had was 50% on equality, 30% on population, and 20% on derivation. Now, what that means is that if you generate 100 billion as VAT in the country, 50%, which is 50 billion, after sharing the VAT to federal takes 15%, local government takes 35%, and then state government takes 50%. This 50% belonging to state government nationwide, you then look at it. If it amounts to 100 billion, based on equality, it means that 50 billion out of the 100 billion will be shared into 37. That is the federating unit, which means 36 states and Abuja. The implication of that is that each state, including FCT, will get 1,351,351,351 naira, equally, regardless of what they have generated. Okay. Now you now have population 30%.
Just a second, Dr. Adeoye, just 1 second. Please don't hold your thought on that 30% because I like to understand it as well. What's interesting is that this same conversation is going on the platform. At least something similar to it is going on the platform today, and we're going to go live on our DSTV channel right now to that conversation of the Nigerian Economic Outlook 2025, which of course is featuring Dr. Taiwo Oyedele and Mr. Segun Zaccheaus, who is a partner at PwC, having a conversation around Nigeria's economic outlook for the year 2025. And it's a roundtable meeting happening right now on DSTV. We'll be crossing there. But this particular conversation continues for those of you who can't go to that place now, right now on the other platforms of Channels Television. And of course, our social media platform. So back to you, Dr. Adeoye. That 30% thing, does that mean that you get 30% per population?
So how that works is, for example, let's say Alero, Ayo, and myself, 3 of us. So if the population in your house, you have, let's say, 10 children, Alero has 4, and then maybe I have 2. So total 16. So 30% will now be shared in accordance with you 10 over 16 times whatever that 30% is. In my own case, 2 over 16 times whatever that 30% is. and then Alero 4/16 times whatever that 30% is. It does not matter whether I contribute the highest, neither does it matter whether Alero contributed the highest. But if Ayo has 10 children, then Ayo is going to get the highest in terms of population. And that's what the bill at the National Assembly tend to correct and say, look, if population is a true figure, then it means that it will have effect on your derivation. It will have effect on consumption. It will have effect on production. Therefore, let's reduce our emphasis on population. To be fair to all, let us also reduce emphasis on equality so that those that are performing, those that are consuming, those that are generating can have their fair share.
Well, Mr. Okwade, you've heard all of this. Are you as troubled as Dr. Adewi?
Thank you very much. I'm as troubled. Dr. Adewi is a very good colleague of mine in both accounting and tax profession. And Taiwo Yedele, a lot of us has been on the path of correcting the narration that we have with the populace about the misconception of what they have at the National Assembly currently. I won't want to bore you with the analysis because not everyone likes the figure as stipulated by Dr. Adeoye. I saw Sister Alero nodding the head when she had 1.3 billion, 300 and something million, 300 and something thousand. She was like, that figure is on the high side. But what we are trying to educate people is to say what the fiscal policy team are suggesting is you must be able to earn better if you contribute to the purse on a better scale. You have the advantage of having more people. And I will take this to the Asian country we all look up to this day, China. I'm sure India, they utilize their population to the advantage for economic development. That we can transfer into the sharing formula of the policy to say, like he said, Aya has about 10, you have 4, he has 2. You should be able to use to your advantage the 10 members of your family to contribute to the bottom line, as against him having 2. So if we discover that the 10 that you...
Yes, sorry, Mr. Konde. So because he has 10, he contributes more and therefore receives more. That is the logic that you're talking about.
Of course.
So if you bring more to the table, of course you will get more.
On your own part. So
based on population.
Logic.
Yeah.
But not on productivity.
Yeah, that's the area that tends to correct. So when you have the population, it's to transcend more to production.
Productivity.
Expected.
That you will
because that's
produce
the normal
more
thing.
and therefore
you
receive more.
So that on its own can, discourage this idea of saying, should we encourage increase in our population or is actually impacting on us? That's the bottom line where we're going. So you have more children, but you are not contributing to the bottom. Then we can come back and say the increase in population has not significantly contribute to the bottom line. So you can come up with a policy that we have in some countries and say you cannot go beyond having 4 children from what we have because that is the optimal level that we have considered can contribute effectively. And I think this is what the tax reform is trying to address. So that you don't just come on the platter of saying, I have the numbers, I am not contributing. But because you have the yardstick of saying you already have a fixed amount that will come to you, then I should just go on the like this. And that's an area we keep saying that let the National Assembly give this as a country. But the beautiful thing I'm actually saying, this is the first time I may be wrong, having the Governor Forum come to speak. Before now, I followed Oyedele, who happens to be a very good friend. And the issue has always been when you engage these stakeholders, suddenly tax has become a discourse. Everybody is putting their eyes into, but it has never been an area of focus before now. We talk about other oil, agriculture, but every day, there is no day I tune to a station, whether on the radio, on TV, that they are not discussing tax. So it gives relevance to it. But before now, majority of the stakeholders were engaged and they were like, no, we already have what is on ground. But when they saw the thing coming out, everybody starts, giving a reflection of what it is, it should be. For me, I'm worried with this position too, because we cannot continue to encourage increase in population without proportionate increasing the productivity of what you have. Because what that implies is that you can have more children and decide to make them to be unproductive and possibly constitute nuisance to the environment.
Okay, no, Mr. Kwade, is there a chance that this proposition of that's based, the part that's based on population, is there a chance that it could compel the country of Dr. Adeoye, which has two, to increase their own production and discourage rural urban migration?
Of course. You see, if you look at some of the things we are currently viewing, the population is more in the rural area than the urban setting. And a lot of us have said, at the rural area, you have access to the raw materials that can bring more productivity to the economy. But everybody tends to migrate from that angle to the urban area for white-collar jobs. If you look at the agricultural sector, we should be relying on our population to develop that wing. Is that what we are getting? The answer is no. You allude to the fact that while we are growing up, why is it that a chief wants to have 3, 4, 5 wives and have 20, 30 children? Because he wants to make use of them at the farm, and it's to his advantage when he takes them to the farm to have more proceeds on that path. But reverse is the case as we speak. A lot of people give birth at the rural area where we have proximity to some of the raw materials that can develop our mining, our agriculture, and the other side, and tends to migrate to the urban side. So what this will correct, like I said initially, is to look at it to say, is increasing our population to our advantage, or we need to curb some of these things? From our calculation, we can observe that Alaro, who has 4, as against yourself and Doctor, 10-2, seems to optimally contribute to the bottom line. And that might be a benchmark to say within the range of 4 and 5 is the maximum that is expected of you to contribute to the bottom line and give the optimal return for productivity.
Okay. Dr. Adeoye, I don't remember where I saw this video, this data, that Nigeria is growing population-wise at 2% per annum, but Lagos State is growing at 5%. Now that begs the issue of this whole population thing, and I'm hampering on it, so that maybe the pressure on infrastructure at urban parts of Nigeria, or urbanized part of Nigeria, more developed parts of Nigeria, would reduce if the governors, with this arrangement or agreement that they now have, can ramp up productivity in their own areas, discourage people from moving from place to place, so that they can also create economic activities that will keep people in their localities and also help them to get more. Do you see that happening?
Yes, that's going to happen. Now, if you look at the Governors Forum suggestion from their communique, they have also played down on population. So they say population now, 20%. They now increase derivation by 10% from what it was. But I'll take you back to the data of August 2024. In August 2024, the Federal Inland Revenue reported that the total VAT generated in the country was 444 billion naira. Lagos alone contributed 249.77 out of that. That's about 250 billion. Now, the entire 36 states, 35 states, including FCT, contributed 194 billion. Wow. Now, when you now look at it, we have 10 states in the north. 10 states, 10, 1 to 10, like number of Alero's children. They contributed 13.69 billion, 10. But those 10 states actually got 59.6 billion. So, what the tax reform bill is addressing, a lot of people do not know, it has addressed population. That is, all things being equal, that the population that you have is supposed to drive production. So we are saying, look, like Mr. Okwade said, you have 10 children. Look, we know that will translate into production. The population of people you have in Lagos is actually part of what is leading to what you get from Lagos. Now we are saying 60% should now be on derivation, regardless of where you are located, your consumption, your production, you are going to benefit from it. And we say, look, let's leave 20% on population and 20% on equality. But the Governors Forum, they are saying, no, equality, 50%. That's more like sharing it equally. What that is going to cause is that if you are expecting that the subnationals, the federating unit, will become very serious, aggressive with production, creating an enabling environment that will allow companies to stay in their domain. And if you think that is going to happen with 50% on equality, it is like the chance of an iceberg in hell. It's not going to happen. Because why do I need to worry myself? My father is now saying, look, Benga, if you like, have 50 children, don't worry about production. We will share whatever we have equally. So somebody else who is contributing largely will receive majorly the same thing, because if 50% goes on equality, we're practically sharing it equally.
Well, isn't there a justification? 20%. My apologies, Dr. Isn't there a bit of a justification for that? Because most of the people that add to this economy of a place like Lagos that you mentioned, for instance, most of them are from different parts of the country. So the states are inadvertently contributing to the economy of Lagos through their citizens, through their locals that come here.
No. Well, I disagree completely with that, your position. Now, you need to look at the word.
It's not my position, Dr. Day. I'm just asking questions. Just trying to go ahead, sir.
Yes. If you travel in a particular state in the country at 8 o'clock in the morning, what I would do, just distribute yourself, you and your wife should go to some other state, then the same type of car, buy the same type of fuel, and then go out at 7 o'clock. Do you know, I was asking a question one time. I was on the Ikorodu Road at 5:30 a.m. and I was in traffic. And then I asked myself, do these people sleep in Lagos at all? So the wear and tear on the road, also you have to consider the volume of wastage that will be generated. If you pass through Ojota now, coming from toll gate, even if you wind up the windows of your car, the smell from that dump site can make you to vomit. What that means, Lagos has huge population. And I know Lagos will be thinking of where else do we carry this thing to. So these are factors that you need to consider. Population is not just, to
to drive revenue alone, it's also a cost center for the governors, because you have to maintain law and order, security. The way you secure population of 10 people is not the same way you secure 2 human beings. You understand now?
Okay.
So
Yes.
the justification is wherever you live. Now, by the way,
Just a second on
why
that.
would people leave?
I think
your state?
Mr. Kwade also has something to chip in on that.
Yeah, it's just in response to your question to Doctor. He has said no, because you put more pressure on the infrastructure. Not about everybody coming from different states, and we are now using your state of origin as a contributing factor, saying, okay, that's part of what you should have taken to your state. What we are saying is that, okay, we can equally say, go back to that same state and use those your technological skill to generate same in your state, and let those that feel that they are delegations do that. You see, part of the things we've been saying is that if we give room for the new reforms, it will develop. A lot of us can use some of the skills and the knowledge we have back in our state and contribute to the bottom line. As a matter of fact, Lagos will only be possibly a state that will have collaboration with those other states in consuming what they'll be producing. And I'll give you a typical example. Look at during the government of Ambode, there was a synergy between Lagos State and Kebbi to say produce this lake rice, we will consume. Lagos do not have the wherewithal in terms of land, spans of land, and the population. But say you have it, and your land is good for actually, bringing this rice up. And that synergy works. They have the off-takers of what you're actually consuming. And before you know it, if that state governor is creative enough, what you will see is that people who are not from Kebbi State, people like me, can decide to go to Kebbi, invest in that state, then I'll be able to address that answer to say, it's not only Lagos, because then I will say, I'm from this part of the state, I'm from Lagos, contributing to Kebbi, then take what it is. So this is what the reform we address. We want a situation where you can use what you have to your advantage, which you are all hanging on. Population. That equity will know, because what that will do, it will create laziness on the part of the leaders to say, whether I work, I do not work, I have this guaranteed. But what we're saying is that your guarantee should be minimal.
Is it not happening already with the sharing, the fact sharing?
Fact sharing.
Yes, there are some states that are not viable if not for fact. They're not producing anything.
And you discover that there are some states that are increasing their IGR on monthly basis in such a way that, look at, I will always make Lagos a template to say the tax revenue generation in Lagos will contribute significantly to their IGR. They've been able to use technology to drive it. And that's why they have a sync with what they have at the federal level. To say you can stay at the comfort of your house and do your return. Currently, the annual return filing, it's on. Do you know there are still some subnationals that you have to go and visit the office physically? Look at the cost of you driving to the tax office and the one you have to stay at the comfort of your house. Time is money. Those periods that you will spend in actually having an interface with someone, technology is solving it for you. So what do you think will generate more? So these are areas we feel that the reform will be able to address, and on the long run, there will be even development, both at the urban, rural. Then you see a lot of people converting from rural to now become an area, because people want to, migrate to that area and contribute to develop the state. So I think the creativity will be much more if you allow this to go.
In parentheses, that example that you gave of the lake rice, I'd just like to chip in that Lagos is producing its own rice now.
Yeah, but at Imota.
Imota, that's it.
But I'm sure they get the feeds too from Kebbi. because I don't think we have the vast land to produce the raw materials input.
Okay.
You can have the factory. And that's part of what we'll be saying. Lagos might just be like a commercial hub in terms of production. You may not have the resources to set up factories like Lagos would do, but you have the raw materials that will be needed in your factory. So we can have an handshake from you, give us the raw material, we produce, and we sell to as many. I can tell you that what is being produced in Lagos, they can now sell even back to you that you are giving us the raw materials because we have the wherewithal to have the production arm of that particular raw materials.
Okay. Dr. Adeoye, another area that the NGF is looking at is the area of company income tax. And they are saying that there should be no reduction of that.
You see, the Nigerian Governors Forum, we can't say they are totally wrong, neither will I say they are right. The reduction in company income tax was to compensate for the increase in the value-added tax. Value-added tax is meant to be increased by 2.5%. And then we now said, look, let's reduce company income tax by 5% so that people who are paying increased VAT will now have a relief on their bottom line because it's 30% of your net profit that is taxable. Not only that, education tax is to be eliminated, PTF, Naseni, all of these nonsense tax are to be removed with just a single tax called development tax at 3%. So the reduction in company income tax is actually well compensated for by value-added tax increase. So, and it encourages big corporations the more to expand. And I will say this, a lot of people think production is being driven because Lagos was capital before or because this. No. You discussed something this morning when I opened to channels about security. If all the state governors can do something about security, enabling environment, you will see companies trooping to go and establish there. Cattle ranch is better established in the northwestern part of Nigeria. People want to go into that. Milk, cow milk, leather, and the rest. So, first thing, creation of an enabling environment, use a pull strategy for people to come to your domain to set up businesses. And by that, pull strategy, you will generate more of value-added tax, and then you will also speak in favor of derivation policy of 60%.
Well, interesting. So now that it will seem, Dr. Adeoye and Mr. Okwande, that things aren't particularly going the way professionals such as yourselves thought, but it would seem that the president doesn't mind, Mr. Okwande. One step is better than no step at all.
Yeah, I would say at least we have a slight shift from the initial submission from the Governors Forum. Initially, they were not listening at all. They feel that should be. Now we have a swap from population being 20 and derivation being 30. What some of us, people like me, have actually said is, okay, well, let's give it a try. And thank God that the fiscal policy team have data to substantiate some of their facts. I listened to them in some of the engagements that we do have that, well, it's not about emotion. You know, at times you come to the table and say, this is what it should look like. No. Do you have facts to substantiate your position? Then we can listen to it. Empirical figures to actually give, backing to what you're actually giving. If, as we speak, because I can tell you for free, a lot of people might not believe. The NGF are very strong and they have their ways of doing their things. If, as we speak, they are able to convince the National Assembly, I would say we've taken a step. Let's give it a try and continue pushing Maybe in the next 3-4 months, they might have, a rethink. Because we can't say no to all. Initially, they were saying this must actually be abolished. We can't stand. This cannot move on. Now they are having a conversation to say, no, don't reduce the income tax. Part of the things we feel they need to do is those technical advisors to our governors need to give explicit explanation on some of the issues that we're talking about, most especially from the private sector perspective that drives the economy.
Okay. Well, Dr. Adeweye, your closing comments on this, but I'd like you to close on how political is this position of the NGF as opposed to developmental or governance?
Oh, it's very political. I mean, clearly it's political. I mean, you just say equality should be maintained at 50%. And then you just do a swap. You push population to 20%, now derivation to 30%. You've not even changed anything, just that 10%. So I would say that Mr. President should use his political heavyweight to discuss with the National Assembly and also the representative of the people. We have 3 senators per state. Thank God we have professionals among them in those National Assembly. They need to look at this. All that is coming from the Governors Forum is actually suggestion.
Okay.
We want it this way. So it's not law, actually. The bill is already with the National Assembly. It's for the technical committee to look at it and say, look, let's go this way, let's go that way. I know they may not want to accept 60% derivation, but I think they should shift it and say, okay, let's push derivation to 50%, and then let's take equality to 30%. That way, we can say, okay, it's enough compromise that we can accept. But leaving equality at 50% will not allow state government to work hard. So, Mr. President have a lot of work to do. The likes of former Speaker of the House of Representatives, he has a lot of his colleagues there. He needs to speak with them. All of us professional, that's what we are also doing here. People need to know that derivation is to the benefit of all the states.
Okay.
So
thank you so much. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for your contributions this morning to this conversation. Dr. Olugbenga Adeweye is a chartered accountant, tax professional, and an international business law expert, along with Mr. Olusegun Okwade, a chartered accountant and public affairs analyst, and also a tax professional. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much for having us this morning.
Well, we brought you that information earlier about a missing person whom we are still hoping to get, hoping that we'll be able to get him. 6th January, a man whose picture will come on your screen shortly, visiting his child in Onipanu, Lagos, that's Mr. Moses Nwoye, went missing after leaving home around 5 p.m. Efforts to contact him revealed he was disoriented and unable to describe his location. His last known location, tracked on 15th January, was near 108 Western Avenue, Surulere, Lagos, around the National Stadium. His family has filed a missing persons report and appeals for your help. If you have seen him or have any information about him, please contact the nearest police station or the number on your screen. We'll take a short break, and when we return, we take on the next one. Which one is coming next? You right or wrong? You'll find out shortly.
Just before we go to the next segment, we got this comment shortly after we closed the segment about the USSD from Dume, who says, in East Africa, USSD operates outside of the banks. It is called Momo in Rwanda and M-Pesa in Kenya. Why can't Nigerian telcos do a standalone USSD operation?
Especially since one of the telcos already has something like that. I'm not going to say which one. They have to pay for me to advertise for them. Well,
the guy is broke.
In the meantime, our Artist of the Week is coming up next. And is it any of the two gentlemen you see on screen? Well, you find out when you see him on the screen. Our guest is a worshiper, a psalmist, and songwriter, an iconic voice in Nigerian gospel music, a recording artist, and a reputable music director, winner of several recognition awards for his works and contribution to gospel music in Nigeria. And he is a global-minded arsenal of dexterity and vocal powerhouse with more to come. Who am I talking about? Many people know him, both mentors and mentees know him as Soji Israel. He joins us virtually this morning from Chicago, Illinois. Morning, good afternoon, safest thing to say is good day. Thank you for joining us this morning, Soji Israel.
It is morning in Chicago.
Are you in Chicago right now? Is Soji Israel with us already, or thought we heard that he was ready earlier? Okay. Soji, good morning.
Good morning, Dayo.
Okay. Good early morning.
Yeah, really early morning. It's 4 a.m. right here.
Good. At least you don't miss the Hamatan here. Anyway, how you doing?
No, photo correction. I miss the Hamatan.
You do?
Because the Hamatan is better than winter.
Oh.
Shut up. You see?
Okay.
Yeah, for real, the Hamatan is better than winter. If we have Hamatan here, I'll be glad we do.
Oh.
Pick one. Hamatan winter. I would say Hamatan.
Don't worry.
All the way.
Keep your winter. We'll continue to manage what we have here. All right. Thank you for joining us this morning, Soji.
My pleasure.
There was a conversation we had some months, maybe about a year or two now, about music. Anyway, first of all, tell us how you have been music-wise, professional music-wise, particularly in the area of mentoring the next generation.
Well, thank you for always, Ayo, and the delectable, awesome, gorgeous, mama that, co-hosts this segment.
She's blushing. She's busy blushing.
Every beautiful woman should blush, actually.
Oh.
It's allowed. It's allowed. So, well, for me, I've been well. Thank God. Life comes with its peculiar package of challenges and all that. But in all these things, we are more than conquerors. So we know from the scriptures, and we believe it. So whatever comes, we face them, we conquer, and we actually fight from victory. So we are more than conquerors. So life has been good. I would say I'm not complaining at all.
No, you can't.
And as far as the other question about mentoring, well, the truth is, I think relevance and participation somehow gives one the automatic mentoring line. Somehow people just pick their path following you, and even people you never met all over the world, to the glory of God. Some, with a number of years being put into what we do, some and so many have really taken their path, motivated, encouraged, and some have actually told me, to my face, that you made me do what I do. In fact, there's a gentleman who told me, and in fact, I could say even from his naming, the kind of name he gave to himself, you can easily tell that he is a total Soji Israel mentee.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So there seems to be a kind of, should I call it a shift, in gospel music in Nigeria of late, it would seem like we have gone way beyond what was. A lot of gospel music is on television, on radio, beyond the days that many people would have expected that they'd be played. We seem to be following Kirk Franklin a lot. By that I mean you have a lot of upbeat gospel music, a lot of them addressing, direct issues that people are going through. A lot of them really just danceable. Some even played in, at social events, all kinds of social events all over. What's that for you? Is it a good thing or a good thing?
Well, I mean, all through and through, it's a good thing. When you come to prominence, especially something that has your patent or that has your identity with it. And by identity, I mean our locality. Yeah, but the truth is, it's not just a peculiar thing to gospel. I think it's just a Nigerian thing. I would say, sound-wise, all over the world, it's Nigeria's time. Nigeria, we've been able to develop a melange, if I may say, of a lot of global sounds. Nigerians are very good copycats. These days you even have American, music trying to follow up with what we do. But it's a good thing. Some people came ahead of the time. And it's a very broad thing to talk about. And as a custodian, having played music for well over 4 decades, I will say that I know the trajectory. I can tell the story, but it's a very good one, and we are in the right direction. I think it's a very good thing for Nigerian music generally, not even gospel. It's just like the sounds are opening up, and it's the sound of Africa. That's what I see. It's a very good thing.
The sound of Africa.
Yes.
That makes my head swell. And I hope it just will not burst, because my pride overflows sometimes when I'm going through an international airport, like I was going through Paris, and blaring out of the speakers was, back to back to back to back Nigerian music.
Yes.
And I wanted to scream down the hall at the airport, I'm a Nigerian. Those are my guys. Those are my guys singing. But apart from being a gospel artist, a gospel musician, you are also a pastor. You are the senior pastor of, is it Enzi or Enzi Ministries?
Okay, I'm the pastor of the Father's Realm Church, actually.
Okay.
It's called the Father's Realm Church.
Father's Realm.
Yes.
Okay, tell us about that.
Okay, so personally, my work in the faith is that of the revelation of the fatherhood of God. And having studied the scriptures as accounted by the eyewitnesses and people who bore record of the Lord Jesus, I realized that essentially the gospel of Jesus is centered on the fatherhood of God. And for me, so that is the crux of what we hold at the Father's realm. And we just want everybody to know that, so whatever you will not do to your child, God will not do to you, and so we love our children, we care about them, we provide for them, we even protect them. So these are expectations of a father. We even forgive them, no matter what they do, nobody, and that is really typically exemplified when Jesus told us the parable of the father who had 2 sons. We call him the prodigal son, but I would say he's just a daring son, and he dared to just take his chances in life, It was an erroneous judgment, though, but we can see the reaction of the father that it was not as an earthly father should actually condone or accept that kind of a prodigal child. But that is essentially the message of the gospel of Jesus, and that is what we hold dear, and that is what we preach.
Which came first, the gospel singer or the pastor?
Okay, so yeah, of course. The musician came first. Because I've been playing music since probably 1981 or thereabout, as a little boy in church, so grew into the craft with some enviable contemporaries too, which I don't want to throw names out there though, but everybody has grown. So then, yeah, so the music came first. Then I think everything just made themselves on the way. But I've been a pastor now, certified to preach and pastor for the past 26 years, and they've actually gone concurrently with each other. So there are people who know my pastoring part, but the musical part has been pretty much out there in the faces of people over the years, probably more than the pastoring part.
Well, to be honest, anyone listening to you now saying that some pastors or Jesus, they'll be wondering maybe it's some impersonation because they know they know you a lot more here in Nigeria as a musician. And talking about that music part, you talked about forgiveness. That was that conversation we had time past, and I want to know if that particular matter has been resolved and if there is a way to make sure it doesn't happen anymore. I'm talking about copyright. I know you wrote this song. I played it quite a number of times on radio, the song Wonder Wonder. And I also know that the same song is also ascribed to someone else, in Nigeria. Same title, same chorus. Nothing changes in the chorus, just the verses are changed in this new one. Tell us about that and if it's a good thing or the other one.
Okay, so, you see, the journey of Christianity is a very, very demanding one. And I say to people that to be a Christian, you don't say it, you do it. You have to act it, The disciples were actually encountered at Antioch, and because of the mannerism, the people said, oh, these guys must have been with the Christ because they saw the mannerism. So every day, I'm not perfect. I have my flaws as a humankind, but I just want to be more like, the master tracking the path. Yeah, so the gentleman in question is not an alien to me. We had met years back in London, probably 2007, and this one, Mike Aremu can be a witness to it. He actually introduced Sonny Badu to me in London. And that was, you know this, you're one of the first people that played the song on radio. I believe in, back then when you were on radio, and you were one of the people that played it, like that. So, and that was, he recorded it 13 years after, and not thanks to the Nigerian system. I will say this, the Nigerian music industry does not protect. Maybe things have changed. I know there was a time that COSAM came up, how well we fared with that. I don't know to what extent we have. Maybe we've done better, but back in the days, we didn't have the protection. So, and our sound, I'm a gifted psalmist, to the glory of God. My sound flies around, and that is not the first one. It just happens to be the most popular one, so to speak. So 13 years after, because we released Wonder Wonder actually officially in the year 2000. And Sonny recorded it after 13 years in 2013 as an audio. Somebody called me and said it. And because I'm, acquainted with him, I put a call through to him. hey, gentlemen, you know this and blah, blah, blah. And he promised to do something about it, and he gave his own version of how he came by the song somewhere in Maryland at Pastor Adeyokuno's church. That is the younger brother of Redeem's Mommy Gio. And he said, Pastor Adeyokuno said, that's my sister's song. Well, in fairness, for people who go to Redeem, they know that Mommy Gio, probably that is her best song everywhere she goes to. And I want to say thank God for that kind of grace to be able to bless the world. And a notable person like that, having, you know, to be blessed by a sound that is produced from, you know, from my inside. To God be all the glory. So I made, as a person, I made the efforts to reconcile it, but I decided I was never going to fight. People said to me, "Oh, go to court." I said, "No, I can't take a brother to court." When he realizes that he needs to make amends about it, he will come around. But for me, no love lost. He's still my brother, and it's just unfortunate. And well, I don't want to say unfortunate. It's just a demand placed on me by what I profess as a believer in Christ.
I don't know if we can hear a bit of the original of that song so people know the original Wonder Wonder song. Yes, it is. That's what's on the screen. So let's listen to a bit of it, released in early 2000. Okay, well, I'm guessing that we will not be able to go with that one. Okay, but so going to other issues, Soji, Nigeria's music, as you said, is going all over the place. But you also said something instructive, that we should find a way to protect our own, the intellectual property and all of those things. From the Nigeria that you know, what are the challenges that you think we have? And how do you think we can go around protecting the Nigerian music, the Nigerian music makers, such as yourself?
Okay, so I think it's, I'm sorry to say, Nigeria has only one problem. And that problem only has divisions. And it has also effects on every facet of our lives. And that problem is system. It's a problem of system. We don't have existing and functional systems. One of the things that actually makes the West work is because the system is actually run, you know, and run by integrity, run like a relay. No matter who it is who becomes the president of the United States, there is a template of governance. There may be difference in, you know, opinions, difference in things they want to do, agendas, manifestos, but you cannot touch the fundamental system. No one is above that system. So I think we need to create a functional system where nobody is above that system. And when the system works, then we'll be talking about, sometimes when we talk about, we use the words industry very loosely. We entertainment industry, you know, movie industry. But when I look keenly, I don't even really see an industry. Because when we're talking about industry, we're talking about a functional system. Hollywood is an industry, and something is, you know, working there. Our music, we're so much involved. Although, like I said, I will repeat this. What we have done well is we've been able to do a melange. And we have been able to copy a lot of things in the world and made it our own, which is not bad. Fela created Afro beats from highlife and, you know, highlife and jazz. So that is how music evolves anyway. So, but now we need that system that will protect what we've now made ours, that will give it a shield. And it will also engender continuity. that patent that we need to put on it as ours. So the system, simply put, we need to find a way around it to create a working system that will, first of all, enable people to get the dividends, the right dividends of their efforts. People, go, pour themselves out, invest in making records. Things are better these days because everybody now has an avenue. YouTube has made things really, really, really. I think back in our days we were, kind of people who were subjective, or let me say subjected to the to the feelings or the response of record label. I remember when this very work, Wonder, when we first did it, I gave it to a particular label. I don't want to mention the name here on here. And this gentleman put it under his shelf for 8 months, 8 good months, doing nothing with it. My manager had to retrieve it from him, and we give it to another person. They did a little bit. You know what they said? They said to me, like you mentioned Kirk Franklin earlier on. So they said to me that this album is selling like people are saying it's too foreign in sound because some of us were ahead of our time, ahead of the time, and we dictated the pace of some eventual evolution of Nigerian church sound. And I make bold to say that. So some of us were actually very exotic in our minds, and we just wanted to do, something really, really. But it's paid off because these days when you still go and maybe you pick a number from Agola Shadari and you slot it, you feel like that vintage sound and it's still relevant with time. So yeah, and some of other folks like that. So I would say Abuela because that's my personal friend, actually. So yeah. There are many other folks have done very, very, very well.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, we have to thank you this morning, Soji Israel, and hope that in time to come, the lessons that need to be learned and the structures that need to be evolved will come to be so that we can position and maximize the potential of Nigeria's music the way you are talking about it. Thank you again for your time this morning. Soji Israel is a writer, performer, producer, and a pastor. Well, that's new. Thank you again for your time.
Thank you.
Okay, well, the home stretch this morning is different.
It is different. We took the liberty of swapping segments, so we shall be doing the lifestyle segment in closing today.
Be glad, I will sing, I will dance, I'll rejoice, and be glad, I will sing.
Can we just take the last S? Just the last S. Just the last S. Now that's the tallest. Just say. It's a good goal.
Sometimes you get very naughty.
That's I think that's a trade secret.
This is still the first month of 2025. I'm sure some of you are still trying to grope your way through what 2025 is going to be like. You're still busy making your resolutions, even though they say that we should have started not just making them, implementing them from the 1st of January.
Or is it a revolution?
But it's never too late to start. This is still January. So the rising cost of living and an unpredictable economy can make financial planning feel overwhelming.
No be lie.
Tell me about it. But here's the truth. You can crush your financial goals. The key is setting clear, actionable steps and just sticking to the plan. Whether you want to save more, invest smarter, or simply take control of your money. Okay, I'm sure some of you are thinking, easier said than done. Well, guess what? There's a personal development specialist in the studio with us who will tell you exactly, or should I say tell us, exactly how to do all those things that sound so simple. Good morning, Mr. Kurongobo.
Good morning. Tell us you. Good morning.
Welcome.
Thank you very much.
Yes. So I want to set my goals. I want to take control of my money. I want to invest smarter. How easy is it?
Okay. Maybe a variant of that question is, what are the challenges in its way?
Okay, so I like the second question as well, because first, it is not easy. It is not easy. Okay. I learned this prayer a long time ago, the serenity prayer. Okay. Lord grants me the serenity or calmness of mind to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and then the wisdom to know the difference. You can't change inflation. You can't change economy. You can't change... Well, maybe you can influence Dirty December, but you can't change it. You can't change it. So there are some things you cannot change, which means most times you should focus on what we have control over.
Wait.
And that's the usual challenge.
Just a quick digression.
Okay.
If it is Dirty December, what is the word for January? Clean January.
It must be something like 99 days in a month, January. And we should find a word for it.
It is the longest month.
It is the longest month.
But some people are saying it's a shorter January this year.
Well, it's fast. Is the truth.
Unlike previous January.
Because we're already on that.
And why?
Okay, so first of all, why is it longer than normal months? Let me even start from there. The thing is that January starts to count before Christmas, especially for financial reasons.
Because you have got your salary by the 15th.
And you have spent it by the 25th.
Maybe employers should stop paying December salaries early.
I totally agree. I noted it. In fact, the people I help to pay salaries, we don't pay salaries before Christmas. So if you have a 13th month additional bonus to get, or some year-end bonus, you get them before Christmas. Your salary comes on the last day of the month. So your January is shorter. Yes.
Your
January is shorter than those who get it before Christmas. And by Christmas Day, the eye has cleared.
I don't clear, and they took.
Seriously. I totally agree.
So you were saying?
Yes, so it is longer for many reasons, partly because money comes into your hands earlier. People spend more when they're happy. This is psychological. I'm glad I did some masters in psychology at some point. People spend more when they're happy. That's why in retail stores, they play music. So you're doing this while you're picking stuff
that you don't need sometimes.
You stay on the queue longer, you don't mind. And while you're on the queue, there are things just before you pay that you still add to the cart. People spend more when they're happier. And so spending is emotional in itself. But the first part is you start earlier than other months. The second part is because people have a way of arranging their lives that bills have a party with you in January. They just come together in January. When everybody talks about that, rent happens because many people, for some reason, pay rent in December, and they move houses in December because they are happier in December. They want a new, fresh start in January. So rent happens in January. School fees happens in January. So many things collide. That's the word I use in January. So you started earlier, you are broke faster, and then more bills come. And that's why January is usually longer.
Say that again. You started earlier.
You are broke faster, and then more bills gather. The way I said it, I should put it up somewhere. But that's what makes January a long month for most people.
Before we go to the solutions that I know you are here with, there's a picture I saw many years ago. Let me move a little further from Alero because it might earn me a backhand. A picture of two people, two pictures. One has a man who entered.
Careful.
Entered a shopping mall. Just goes, picked what he wanted, just looked around one or two things, and went to chill and goes out. Second picture shows a woman.
A woman. Yeah, I know.
I should move to.
Oh, well, you know, the picture, the pen to show the direction of the man was in red. You see the way you did your hand? That's the way the thing showed all the aisles in the shop. What does psychology say about that one?
So, First point, I will speak from this side of the divide.
I should warn both of you to be very tread softly.
I will.
Okay.
So I will ignore the gender part to it and just speak to spending and psychology of it.
Thank you very much.
For safety reasons.
Thank you.
So what happens most times is where people don't have clear plans, then there's something I have named the spirit of money that comes to us a lot and talks to us. And I can prove it to you. You come into some money. Somebody who hasn't called you in the last 6 months calls you out of the blues and has a need for your money. I'm sure most people have that kind of experience. Or there's an eatery next to your house. You don't smell the food until you have money. When you have money, you start noticing that this place looks nice. Maybe I should check it out. Maybe I should see what's going on. It's a psychological thing that just once money is in your hand and there's no name to it, that's why I put it. There's no name to the money. Then things begin to look different. Needs, wants become needs. This becomes something I like to have. If I meet you up in an eatery for a meeting and we don't have money, we don't discuss buying something so they don't harass us. If we have money, we are uncomfortable. They may come to harass us. Let's just buy meat pie or something. That happens. It's psychological. That happens too when people walk into a place and don't have a plan for what they want to get in there.
No, most cases, these particular people we are talking about, they have a list.
Okay. Again, Ayo, I am not joining you. Please take notes.
People.
I'm not with you.
Said
good.
People.
So the first part is that
fear go kill you. You are dying before you are killed.
I just want to walk out of this today. One piece. I'll be fine. So the first part is that part. The second part is even with or without a list. If somebody had a budget, and people think budgets are only about money, you should have a budget for time too. So free time is enough reason to meander through aisles and check things out. Yeah. If I had an appointment 20 minutes after, there's no time to look around. Once there's no time to look around, there's no more time to spend finding things I don't need and spend. So I think it's budgeting, but not just time, not just money, also with time.
Okay. Now to the issues now. What are the things that challenge finance goals in a year? What are the things that make it difficult for people to say, okay, I want to set financial goals? And then even after setting the financial goals, what are the things to look out for? What are the, should I say, redundancies that one should build just in case?
First thing is setting it right. So many people have wishes they call goals.
Oh.
First point, a goal without a plan it's just a wish. I would like to be rich in 2025. It's not a goal, it's a wish. It has to become smart, which we're very particular about. Specific, I want to have 25 million by the end of the year. Measurable, 2 million a month. Achievable, what am I doing to earn that kind of money and set it aside? Relevant to everything I want to be in life. Jackpot to Canada. By the way, jackpot is in the dictionary.
Yes.
So I learned. Interesting.
Yes.
Anagbero and Eba.
Yes.
Relevance to all those other goals and then time bound. If you don't do that, first point.
By the way, so is Fanny Moros.
Yes, I heard of Fanny Moros a while back. Yes. Fanny Moros. So first is setting it wrong. Once you set it wrong, then it will fail. That's the first part. The second part is we focus more on external issues than on us. The biggest part to achieving a goal is not things outside you, is you. People don't have the discipline to do what needs to be done. So you set the goal, and then someone comes up and says, let's go, it's dirty December, don't sit in your house, yada, yada. And then you join them. And in one night, you spend your salary of 2 months. Because you don't want people to look at you a certain way. Because you don't want to be left out of what... That's usually what makes it feel. So the first thing is setting it wrong. The second thing is you, the discipline part. Then the third part is not thinking seriously about what resources and support you require to get it to happen. So what kind of income should you be earning? What kind of support system should you have? Those kind of things become important. I think those are the three major reasons why before you start trying to get the goals to work, you set it wrong.
Okay.
You set it on the wrong parameters, or you don't set them properly at all. Second is when you set it, focus on you first. If you don't have the discipline to follow through a goal, I have 1 pack. Assuming I wanted a 6-pack, the biggest issue would not be paying for a gym or having a gym body. The biggest issue would not be paying my subscription for the gym. The biggest issue would not be those things. It will first be me. Good sleep, drink water, watch what you eat. If you don't do those things, your gym money will go for 6 months. and you won't go to the gym.
And then taking yourself to the gym.
In fact, that's another thing altogether. Just getting up and saying, okay, it's time to go to the gym. So if you don't get you sorted out, the rest will not work.
You know, when you say that, when people say, I don't want people to look at me in a certain way, so I do what I don't want to do. What will happen if they look at me in a certain way?
Interestingly, I've never found an answer to that. They are not paying your bills, they are not feeding you.
You know,
Why?
I read somewhere, it says what people think about you is not your business. It's their business.
It's their business.
Okay. Now, practically speaking,
Yes.
People who have salaries, okay, everything, some of them, they say something, they said that their take-home cannot take them home. Some cannot even take them to the bus stop.
True.
Okay. How do they save? Because there's that thing that people say that, look, I don't even have enough, and I'm expected to save. So how can someone save when his take-home cannot even take him to the bus stop?
First question to the person is, do you know how much is enough? Many of us don't know. We just go out to buy rice when rice is finished in the house. By the way, I said I was going to say this on national TV, so thank you for bringing me. When I was a kid, rice was a luxury. You ate rice only on weekends or during
weekends.
Not weekends, Sundays.
Sorry, I apologize.
And Christmas Day.
And Christmas Day, and those kind of days.
3 times a year, man. 3 times a year.
For some people.
Christmas, Easter and Ileya. Only.
That was it. And there was a reward part to it. The meat was reward for finishing your rice.
It has to be chicken.
And it has to be after you finish the rice.
Yes.
Now it's a staple meal. We don't grow enough of it in Nigeria, and it's a problem. But let me do that apart. I just thought to mention that real quick. So first point is, if you can't save when you have 20,000, you can't save when you have 200. And the starting point is people don't even know how much they need. Most people, I dare say maybe 95% of people today, can't tell you how much they need to live a normal life every month because they never bothered with it. If that is the case, you would have 200,000 and then it would not be enough. Then you have 1 million, it won't be enough.
So let's help us understand what are the things that people should pay attention to so that they can know that they indeed have enough.
First of all, clarify what a need is. Maslow's hierarchy of needs helps to clarify that. Food, shelter, transport, if you're going to work, are needs.
How many times?
Clothing.
How many times a day do I have to eat to have enough?
I think the question first is how many times a day do you have to eat? Let's stop there. Let's not add to have enough. I think, sorry, I'm radical in my thinking. First, I don't see why adults today have to eat 3 times a day. You're not eating to grow. You have reached the peak of your growth. You may grow, in girth, but definitely not. So why are you eating 3 times a day? Your body doesn't need 3 times a day food.
What if the stomach is crying for you?
Tell the stomach that behave yourself. The system we are in doesn't allow
that kind of luxury.
Exactly. You don't need to. So if you see, people say this a lot. Oh, you eat 101, 011. Usually those things don't happen because people decide to do it. They happen because we don't have. What if we decided to do it? And you know the benefits to not eating so much?
Health, yeah.
There are health benefits to it. If you discipline your body, you can discipline everything else. That discipline you're looking for is easier when you can say, I don't want to eat even there's food. So maybe you shouldn't eat 3 times a day and not budget 3 times a day meals.
Okay. And transport?
For a start. Transport, this one we've discussed over and over again. Do you have to go to work every day? It's not your choice if you are employed. If you are not employed, because not all of us are employed by people, then you don't have to go to work every day. If I don't have to go to work, I'm not going anywhere. In fact, going somewhere means that there's value somewhere else. I'm not going anywhere. Starting point.
Because going out means spending money.
It means spending money. Now, if you then have to go out, do you have to go out the same way every day? This I've repeated over and over again. Why can't I find people who go where I go when I'm going there and come back when I'm coming back and join them? I could pay them a smaller fee than paying public transport fees. I could swap with them. We call it carpooling.
Yeah.
We can, rotate. And it's because people still feel, how would they look at me when I talk to my colleague about joining them in their car? Like I don't have one. But please repeat that thing you said so they can hear it. What people think about you
is not your business.
It's not your business. Just go to work and come back. So you can begin to cut all those things off if you first start with you and separate what is a need from a want. And then over time begin to pile them up. So first thing is confirm what you need in a month. if most people do a budget today in Nigeria, you find something very interesting that reflects Nigeria in Nigerians. We spend more than we earn. Standard, we spend more. The budget deficit in Nigeria sometimes is 40%, 50%. We plan to spend more than we earn. Then we blame the government for it. It's reflected in most Nigerian families today. We spend more than we earn. We just have other things that bring little monies in. So something for the weekend, 1,000. And then
it's the government that taught us how to
do this.
Yes.
Well, we have to learn to stop relying on government.
No, aside from that, is it not the same you that is in government?
Oh, by the way.
Anyway, so bullet points.
Yeah.
Need to a kind of to-do list to help people set goals, monitor their goals, and
achieve
them, and reward themselves when they achieve major milestones before December.
Okay, so there's a personal finance session coming up soon where we'll break it down, but I'll just do the bullet points so that people can take that first. The first part is to plan. So before you get to December or January, the two sort of most interesting months in the year, the first thing you should do is plan. So I have bought rice that will last me through Christmas in August or September for the past 2 or 3 years. That time, first of all, the rice is less expensive, it's more available, and I know I won't finish it till Christmas. Why am I waiting until 2 days to Christmas to go and buy rice? When clearly it's inflated in price. It's a little bit of planning. So first is to plan. By the way, you don't have to eat rice on Christmas Day. People don't visit you as much as we used to as children, so they don't know what you eat.
In fact, most of the time you don't eat rice.
You don't eat rice on Christmas Day. You just happen to, but we know
you just want to have
rice in your house. So if you must have rice, please buy it early. Don't wait till Christmas. A friend of mine is HR in a company in Abuja. I can't mention her name. And she started buying rice that the company normally buys for staff in November. So I told her, I'm not sure that this will go down with their staff. And she said, I don't care what they think. We owe them rice. I'm buying it now. I'm saving the company money. And except if you are feeding a village, you can't finish a bag of rice between November and December. So every year she buys rice in November. Simple planning. I think the first thing before the months come is to plan. The planning includes things like what I mentioned before, your bills colliding. So can you begin to spread the due dates for your bills beyond January? If you can, pay rent in September or October. Don't do September too, because school fees is higher in September. It's higher in September. So maybe in July, you have bills for rent. September, you have a spike in bills in July for rent, a spike in September for new school fees or new term school fees, then a spike in so your January spike is gone because you spread it over. So those are the kind of things we should do first. Plan before. Secondly, during that period, please wear a helmet on your senses. I don't know where that came from, but it sounds like it's appropriate. There's this superhero. There are these superhero. I watch superhero movies every now and then. There's one. I think his name is Juggernaut. One that has a helmet. That when you remove the helmet, the helmet will prevent your emotions from taking over thinking. You have to do it in December. Most people don't know how to do it. So what happens, like I said earlier, the eye clears by Christmas Day. You have gone somewhere because you now say, I can't come and kill myself. That's how we say it in Nigeria. So you've gone out, which is good. You've hung out with people, which is good. And then while you are there, who says, for instance, I have to spray the musician? I don't spray anybody. They paid him in full before he came to perform.
Exactly.
Okay, there's disinfectant you can use to spray.
To spray the air. When it's there, I will not spend extra when I didn't plan to spend in those situations. So we need to put a cap on how emotions take over how we spend. I've told you, retail stores is appropriate to play music. The more groovy the music, the louder the music, the more people spend. Yes. It's psychology. There's a book called Biology, B-U-Y-ology, by Martin Lindstrom. He wrote it a long time ago. He came to launch the book in Nigeria. I was privileged to be at the launch. So I heard him speak, I read the book. It tells you how your mind affects how you spend. Most people don't bother until when there's nothing left. They will now blame everybody else.
I think with these few words of yours, I have made up my mind.
You are convinced.
I'm convinced more than convinced. I'd rather stay at home.
Mr. Koromzomo, every time you come, you just leave us in stitches when you do your analysis, which make perfect sense, but they're also full of humor. Thank you very much for coming, and a Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year to you.
Which of these are you going to follow? Start making your
wear a helmet on your sense.
So that is Sunrise for today. We hope that you enjoyed being with us. We enjoyed bringing you the program. In fact, we enjoyed it very much. And we hope to bring you a fresh edition next week. I'm Alero Edu saying bye-bye.
Wear a helmet or your financial spending this year. I'm Ayabakide. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Wear a helmet. Helmet.